Okay, you're good to go, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Oh, and you're on mute.
Thank you for that. Good evening, members of the public, staff, council. Welcome to the Monday, October 4th regular council meeting. Moved by Sam McDonnell and second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the October 4th council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry be opened at 7:01 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. I'll now ask everyone to rise for the playing of our national anthem. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments?
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We have an item that is being deleted from the agenda this evening, that being item 7B, I believe, which is the report regarding the traffic calming policy. We also have an item that's been requested to be moved into other business from information only, that being the resolution from the Township of North Glengarry regarding OHIP eye care.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I will be declaring on staff report. Where is it here? My apologies. 7AF, removing of holding symbol. It's a property that my parents own. So I'll step away and ask Councillor Jaworski to take the reins at that time. Moving on to number 5, approval of the minutes. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the minutes of the September 17th council meeting, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. That resolution should be changed to as amended, because I did notice I neglected to put the recorded vote for the resolution on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So okay. I will be adding that to the minutes. So the resolution should be to approve as amended.
Thank you for catching that. I didn't. All righty. So be it resolved that the minutes of the excuse me. Be resolved that the minutes of the September 17th council meeting, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as amended. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 5A. My apologies, 6A. We have a presentation and delegation from Storm Internet Project Update. Burkett Foster, Michelle Alone, and Chris. I will welcome to the meeting.
Rankler.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Foster, I do apologize for cutting you off earlier. We were just getting ready for a meeting. I didn't mean to disrespect you if you thought that.
No problem, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you.
I think Shauna was going to have a few words about this project and the involvement of the township.
Okay. Ms. Baggs?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yes, so sorry about that. My mute wasn't turning off. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Storm Internet this evening. It's a really great project for the community, more specifically North Lancaster. We've heard nothing but great feedback. The public process was very successful, very positive, and everyone I've spoken to about it is just excited to get connected. So without further ado, I will pass over to Birgit Foster, and maybe Birgit, you can introduce your team.
Certainly. In our team, we have Michelle Lalonde, who's the VP of Construction, and Chris Ranklers, who is the VP of Network Infrastructure. And the job is to build out our internet. Are they just going to look to see if they're here? There's Chris. Good. Chris, say hi. And we also, I'm not sure if Michelle made it in, but we have enough information between the two of us to cover the project. I have volunteered to share my screen so that we can do our own timing on this. So let me see if I can select the right window. Let's see, it seems to be this one. Somebody with 8 windows open, my problem, not yours. And nope, you're seeing the 2 screens, I think.
Yeah, we're good to go. Your screen is showing now, sir.
Okay, that's excellent. I'm going to, so what we're doing is we're providing some 5010 unlimited internet services. Now, 5010 is a magic number because it means you get 50 megabits down and 10 megabits up. And I guess the big thing about that is that covers most households' needs. And that's really why we're pleased to be able to bring it to the area. I think the big thing for people to understand is that by putting 2 200-foot towers in, we're going to be able to cover 560 roofs. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. Next, we have the Storm Internet is actually been around for a long time. So we are actually 25 years in business. This summer, we've passed 25 years. We also passed 10 years in SD&G in Chesterville. And we have an additional office in Perth. And we also passed 10,000 customers across Eastern Ontario. We have over 1,000 commercial clients. So we're not just doing residential, we're also doing commercial. The actual map looks like this. So you can see what we call a pop shack or point of presence. And it's actually going to be behind the municipal building in North Lancaster. And there is a Bell, there's some Bell folks that are connecting us to the Bell network. And then we take that signal and see that red line that runs down to Banesville. We're taking that signal and making it feed the other tower. And it's some pretty big innovation in this. It's Storm's first time putting a 5010 project together. We've done a lot of 25.5, and 10.1 was the standard back in 2015. And this air fiber actually made it possible. So an air fiber lets us push more than a gigabit between the 2 towers. And the idea was that the license links would become more available. And so in April 2021, the government of Canada decided that they would reduce the price of licensed links from about 24,000 a year to about 4,000 a year, which makes this project possible. Without it, it would not have been a possible project. So we're using innovation in terms of the new license link availability we're using innovation in terms of the speed of the radios. If you look, you'll see that there's a round circle, and that's the 5-click radius around the tower. And so we can deliver 5010 inside that radius. Then you'll also notice that there's one segment that pops out. That segment that pops out, it shows what it looks like at 10 clicks. At 10 clicks, we can deliver 25.5. It's just a matter of physics on how much you can deliver to somebody. And for most people, it's all about the speed, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation. The two towers are both 200 footers. There's going to be one in North Lancaster and one in Craig K. Chris, anything else to comment on this?
Nope, carry on.
Okay, so the licensed link is running in the 13 gigahertz frequency for all the techies in the audience. And it allows us to use small 2-foot dishes to push the signal between the two locations. It's a licensed link, so nobody else can interfere with it, which means we're pretty well guaranteed the signal will be strong and robust. The Craig K Marina is where the second place is. We actually moved the tower location down towards the waterfront, and we're working on right now getting the geological survey done so that we can prove that the tower would actually work there. And it was originally up by the pump house, but in our negotiations with their marina company, they decided that they would, Craig K decided that they would like it more down by the marina. So we're moving it there. In North Lancaster, we're just behind the building. So on the other side of the building is the post office and the front entrance to the municipal garage. The signal should be able to come in quite nicely from the other places. The project timeline is such that we're going to actually, we actually started back in July. We did our public consultation, and thank you to the staff, Joanne and Shauna, for their help on the public consultation. And then we've been working slowly towards the tower construction. We're thinking that towards the end of October it should start, but we've already staked it out. And if you're following us on Facebook or Instagram so it's storm.ca/blog, you would actually see that we did a little movie on our staking out the tower in North Lancaster. Then I think, Chris, you've just ordered fencing and generators and a cabin and all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, all the parts and pieces have been ordered. It's the lead times on things are a little bit longer than we originally expected. COVID has affected quite a few of the supply chain elements, but we're still trying to pull everything in as best as we can.
Right, and that's I just hit the wrong button, so we're going to try and raise that again. There we go, I think, and I think we can go there. There we go. So we have, let's see. Don't ever mess with settings. It works badly. Okay, so what it means for South Glengarry is we're expecting that we cover about 560 roofs, and they're split with about 250 in North Lancaster and about 300 in Craig K. It is dependent on line of sight, but we expect that we'll get good results because there's many people that can see a 200-foot tower. And so we looked at it this way. We're starting to deliver for people who are work from home, learn from home, all the healthcare things you can do over the internet. People are doing online shopping, but the other thing is there's online sellers. And one of the things we've noticed in our customer base is that there are some customers that actually have opened up different kinds of online e-commerce. And so I know that there's an alpaca factory, I guess, for alpaca wool. So you can buy a sock kit from someplace in Lanark. And we've been doing that for since 2015 or so with that customer. And so, it really does open up new opportunities. Of course, The banks are all pleased with us because they get to get you to go to online banking. And of course, Netflix and the other entertainment is available as well. So all around, it really helps with education, with entertainment, and everything. And because internet's the sixth utility, but it's really the first utility that people ask about before they locate a business there, or before they go ahead and move into an area. So that's really, really important. And the Canadian Real Estate Board estimates that having high-speed internet to your house increases the value of a home by up to 7%. So sooner or later, that makes it into an impact statement. So it's all about the speed, is what I said in the beginning. And so this is some kinds of ways about talking about the internet. So instead of 50/10 and 25/5 and 20/5 and 10/1, let's give you some practical examples. YouTube is going to take between 3.5 and 8 megabits down and 1 up. A high definition movie needs 8 gigs for 100 minutes if you download it. Netflix needs a 3-in-1 to stream, but it's smart enough to know that if you have more bandwidth, it could get a higher quality signal. So, but preferably you aren't running 4K, which needs 16 megabits per second. So if you had 2 people trying to do that on a 50/10, you've used 2/3 of it. Zoom calls 1.5 down and 0.6 to 1, depending on what you're doing. And if you actually go to host the call, you actually need more than this, because you would be the person with all the other screens on your screen. Google Meets 3.2 down and 1.8 up, and Teams from Microsoft is 6 down and 3 up. So all of these things are part of the magic equation. What people forget is that every device you have in your house that is a smart device, which includes the smartwatches, which includes every cell phone you have, which includes all the tablets you have, which includes the Nest, include it both for temperature and for your ring at the door, for the doorbell. All of those things require internet. And we had recently a customer who said, well, I haven't really changed anything, but when we went and looked at what their setup was, they'd added 6 cameras, and we're wondering why things were slow. So just remember that those are the kinds of things that are there. Chris, anything else to add on that?
No, that's all makes sense.
Okay. Well, I wanted to tell you that Chris has been doing a lot of work to deliver your tower. I know he's made several trips. He made more trips to South Glengarry than he ever thought he would. Probably more than he's done in his entire life.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a nice township.
Yeah, and I've discovered the Bridge Restaurant, and I did meet with MP Eric Duncan in Lancaster, and walked across the road and said hi to Shauna. So,
and
yeah.
I've worked mostly with Shauna, Joanne, and Chris, and they've been super helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Actually, Chris up at the garage has been really, really helpful in a lot of different areas. The benefit that the township's getting out of it is they're getting access to our generators, so that when there is a power failure, they'll still be able to open and close the garage doors, which they can't do right now. And also, there'll be some backup power in the building. And we appreciate the fact that the township came forward and came up with a piece of land that we could use to put a tower in. So thank you, Shauna, for that on behalf of the township. And the other thing that should be noted here is that up to 50% of the build cost is being picked up by a group called CENGEN, which is the Center of Excellence for Next Generation Network, because they liked our innovation. And so in the eligible costs, it works out to almost $400,000. Project's a little more than 800,000 by the time we add everything in. It's money that they put aside to try and help Canadian entrepreneurs and internet companies change the way that they're doing things and put in some innovation. So we're pleased to be bringing an innovative network to South Glengarry. Any questions?
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. I'm going to ask you to exit your screen so we can see. I can see everybody on.
Oh, right, sure.
please and thank you.
Boom. There you are.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I have a couple questions, but I'll open it up to the floor first. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, thanks for your presentation, gentlemen. I know for me, this is a very exciting project. I know I grew up just outside of North Lancaster with about three up, and it was a bit of a struggle. And I know I know I can name a few places off the top of my head where you definitely do the same project. I know I spent most of the entire pandemic going down for council meetings because 0.6 up wasn't enough to run a Zoom meeting from home. So it's definitely a welcome project for me and a welcome development, I guess. And it's really nice to see how far the technology's come, that you can blow fiber through the air as opposed to DSL. So I'm very happy to see this project happen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any other? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. I was very interested to see just what wide you can potentially get off of one tower. I didn't realize that it went so wide, the 5 kilometers and then the 10 kilometers at the lower rate. So that's really interesting because it sort of gets my hopes up for the future, because bar none, internet is probably the topic that is raised the most to me. You know, how to get better internet is the topic that's raised most to me here in South Glengarry. It has wide support. So I guess my question to you is, what do you see the future like? How do you see the township being able to help move some of these types of opportunities forward?
Well, I know that your collaboration so far has been outstanding. I believe that there are other areas. In fact, I noticed Michelle's here. So Michelle, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what it would take to drop something into St. Raffles, just as an example. So we looked at St. Raffles, but we weren't able to do it. But from 200 feet up, we can probably feed a signal there. What do you think, Michelle? You're
yes.
probably muted.
Hello, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason we went with the 200-foot towers is for those reasons. In Lancaster Heights and St. Raphael, in those wooded areas up north, we can beam more like licensed links with gigabit speeds to those small areas and build something else later in the future. And also down in the south side, north of Craig Cay, all those silos and farms are very helpful to get into those subdivisions as well. So there's lots of expansion room on these towers, and that's why we built them that way, so that we could have more high capacity links leaving those towers to other areas in the South Glengarry.
So another area of hybrid that we can do is, Michelle was mentioning bringing something to a town like St. Raffles. We could actually take it off a tower that was in St. Raffles and drop it into the ground and put fiber to the home in the ground, feeding it with our wireless link into the town without having to get, things trenched at, let's say $14,000 a kilometer.
Right. Ms. Baggs and then Councillor Lang.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention as well that Storm also has experience with smart farms. So especially in the North Lancaster area, maybe Burke could touch a little bit on that as well, because this is going to make a big difference to those farms within that geographic region.
Thanks. That's a very good point. Out of our Chesterville office, there's a sales rep who helps solve problems for people, and his name is Peter Vanderland. And he has done 150 smart farms, mostly in SD&G. So that's when you integrate pieces together. So in a dairy barn, it might be the feeder and the milker, along with cameras, along with the tool shed and the house and everything, all being on its own private network. So we do a lot of those, and then we also do grain bins. So measuring grain bins for humidity, heat, and dryness. And all those are among the things. Michelle or Chris, is there anything else you want to add on that?
Well, it's really the smart farms is really an integrated. I mean, it's the feed and the speed. First of all, providing a reliable feed and speed into the farm, but then it's like Burkett said, creating a local area network that is unique for that farm and connecting the required number of devices in the barns and so on, as needs arise, and given the number of buildings, the number of head of cattle, that kind of thing. You know, there's all sorts of things that you can do. The Internet of Things, of course, is going to expand what you can do locally on the farm in the future. They're talking about RFIDs on cattle to track them, and you know, those sorts of things. So there's lots of capabilities available. But the first thing you definitely have to start with is a reliable feed to the internet, and also being able to, you know, do other things like we can do our virtual private networks. We can do those kinds of things as well if they want more security and those sorts of things.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. Thanks for the presentation. Excellent. Glad to see this moving forward. My question obviously was on the smart farms, and you've answered 90% of it. I just wanted to know if what a smart farm was. And since I'm farming, I wanted to know if I was part of that, or if maybe I was on the side that wasn't quite so smart. But we've been trying here too. I mean, we're a grain farm, and we have cameras and camera to watch the dryer and so forth. And part of our problem is we just don't have the service. We have about 7 up and 0.7 down, or no, the other way around. And anyway, it's not enough for us to do a lot. But we're trying to do what we can with what we have at this point. But we're not in the area you guys are covering at this point, but we're out there searching for ways to get more speed. So keep it up, and I hope you can expand a little bit in the township. And if you got a tower in St. Raffles, I might be within the 5 kilometers.
There we go. So when we do our network planning, Michelle actually does an excellent job on using Google Maps and integrating them in to what we have for our network infrastructure, and I'm sure that in a discussion maybe for next summer's build, who knows, we could have a chat about that, because I'm pretty sure that the people from Sengen would be open to doing a hybrid where it's the air fiber in and into a fiber. So we may be able to do that, and then at the same time add a service that is high speed from St. Raffles or other areas. So it was actually designed deliberately so it was expandable and we could get other things going. Just stand by and let us understand where the opportunities are, because part of this is all driven by how many people are needing this. So that, because obviously we're a business and we have to actually make sure that we understand what the investment needs to be and what the payback period is.
Perfect.
There are some townships that are doing a couple of things that you might want to note. If I have 2 minutes, Deputy Mayor.
No, I just have a couple of questions, and they're at the top of my head. So go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so one of them is that we've had a chat with Al Armstrong over at North Dundas, and he managed to get a bylaw put in place that says every time they do a culvert replacement, they will put a 4-inch conduit beside that culvert. So that's now a bylaw in North Dundas, because that saves people having to dig up a road to do a road crossing. The second thing is, if you're actually doing roadworks, which everybody does at some point, in the roadworks, there's also a high probability that if it's an area that has houses in it, it's a lot easier if while you're there with the road open, if you could drop a conduit in, because that would make a huge difference to and we'd rent it from you. So you'll get payback on it, assuming that there's people in the area. But certainly, there's lots of different ways to do it. But this helps. If you look at the ROMA documents, which is the Rural Ontario Municipal Association documents on doing internet, they're very clear that there's ways to attract investment. Make it easy for us to go and do an investment. We're definitely going to come. And we're here now, thanks to Shauna.
Great, that's awesome. And that's a really neat idea that I'd like to maybe explore at a later time, but
Yep.
it certainly makes sense when you've got the road up and going. Just throw in that conduit, like you said. A question I have, I'm looking at, I think it's the second or the third page, the first map that you provided on your presentation. So essentially the Cranky Tower gets its signal from North Lancaster, and there's, I don't know, looks like maybe 7 kilometers, or no, about 12 or 13 kilometers between the two.
Yep.
The folks that are kind of in between those two circles, they'll still be able to get service from you, but just at a reduced speed?
The people outside the 5-click circle, yes, it'll be 25.5, which for most households is still fine. Based on how many people are going to be on Zoom at the same time, or whatever the actual thing that they're trying to do is. If you're trying to do an awful lot of things, you might run into 50. Like if you're trying to get a 4K TV to run at full power, you're going to take 16 megs per second. So you get one of those and one Zoom call and you're out of gas.
Got it. Yeah.
But you don't have to run 4K at full 4K. You can run 4K TVs at 1080p, which you probably remembered seeing that on the outside of I'm really old. So a video, a CD, and a video or a DVD, that's it, DVDs. They used to say now in 1080p. Well, now we're actually in 4K.
I think for most of these residents, this is going to feel like rocket power, right? They've been struggling with Councillor Jaworski. They've been struggling with a lot worse than 25 or 10 or whatever. What is the business case to install additional towers? Like, I know we were very fortunate to receive the grants for you guys to come to our municipality, but what would it take to add like supplemental towers? Like, say we could throw one, strategically to the northeast, to cover like Lancaster Heights, and then stick one in St. Raffles. What is the business case for that? And is it just not achievable without a grant?
It varies. We're trying to build a business case that's about 2.5 years for break even, because in the wireless business, things change every 5 years. So we at least like to have 2 years worth of revenue before we have to go change up the radios, because the world does change frequently. So, but we'll look at what the equipment needs to be there. You providing a tower site reduces our cost. So if it's municipal land, which unfortunately you don't have a lot of, but in places where we can use it, we will. So it helps reduce the cost, and which of course increases the return on investment, which means we can get it inside our envelope window. And maybe Michelle wants to talk on that.
Yeah, I want to add as well. So we typically choose our areas by the demand that we see around those areas. So in our present network, we keep everybody's applications, and we put the star on our Google Maps. And then when we see stars start to gather in certain areas and demand starts building, that's where we'll go first. So we need to know lots, and it helps to build a business case for sure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martel, you had your hand up for the final comments.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I guess just a comment. It was going along the same lines of your last questions. Just this council has more or less put an emphasis on the need for more and better and stronger internet service across the municipality. We've more or less formally / informally decided to treat it as infrastructure. We have like roads and bridges, and if we're willing to invest in it, and you have areas within our township, I think it'd be great if they could either come straight to council or come to through Shauna to either the connectivity committee. But if they can come to council as we go into a budget here in the fall, if there's opportunities in areas that we have serious issues, because I know I've lived in one of them or two of them, there's definitely a need for it, and it's especially the last 2 years, has really highlighted how important internet services is whether it's for kids or for working remotely, and it makes it a little easier, a little more attractive to draw people into the municipality and either build that house they've been waiting to build or whatnot. So I know if you look at Lancaster Heights, you look at the 9th concession, there's a lot of areas in there that have terrible service. I know even where I grew up was always terrible up until, well, hopefully with this new project. And then as well, our far northwest corner, Robertson Road corner end of the world is also a tight area on internet. So if there's areas you've identified other than the North Lancaster area and St. Raffles, I'm sure there's some other areas too we can highlight for you if you can put together a business case. Maybe there's something the township itself could do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, to your point, Councillor McDonnell, and to Michelle's point, we map out, where there's demand based on feedback that we get from residents. South Glengarry is obviously a new area for us, and we're just starting to establish ourselves here. So one area where the township could be extremely helpful is in actually identifying those pockets where that demand is high, and finding out if residents would be willing to commit. Because what we really need in order to establish a business case is not people saying, well, it would be great if we had more speed. It would be, if we came, would you buy our service? We need almost a verbal commitment. I know you can't get it. Sometimes people, will give you could do a written commitment as well in some kind of an arrangement like that. But that's when you're getting closer to actually building the towers. But just in a survey-like fashion to find out, would you commit to getting a service if it was offered to you at this price, for example? That kind of thing. We find that, especially when you're going into new areas, we need to know how big of a market we could potentially address if we built a tower in a certain location, or we brought fiber to the area or whatever. And that will certainly help make our decisions a lot easier.
No, it's good to know. I mean, I know we've gone to the extent of putting a committee together just based on connectivity, and that includes natural gas, internet, cell service, and how do we bring that in. We've talked about doing a more or less a mapping style of connectivity, as far as trying to get as many maps from Enbridge and from Bell where there is fiber and where there's fiber directly to the home already. And as far as cell service, more or less drawing a dead zone map. But it's just, I know the fiber, from what I've been told, is able to penetrate more through through tree covers, or to the old tin roofs saying, we can't break through the tin roof with the cell service. So if we can put some of this stuff together, maybe some of it will be beneficial to you guys. But I guess more or less what you're saying is we more or less would have to, say for Lancaster Heights, go out and knock on doors, basically canvass the area, asking if and I don't say we're opposed to doing that, to help if it moves it along by a year or two.
Okay, thanks, Sam, for those comments. I'm going to go to Ms. Baggs and then to you, Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I was just going to mention as well that now that the project is officially launched, we haven't been able to formally announce it through SunGen yet, but part of that program has a really good opportunity for us to be able to calculate the speed and the location of who's using the internet service within our area. So they have actually created a website through CIRA, which is actually the internet, I guess the company behind the .ca. And part of their programming is to have, if you go and you test your speed online, and you can get to a point and it'll tell you how fast you're going. Well, Sierra kind of takes all that information based on this website specifically for South Glengarry, and will tabulate the entire area. So we'll be able to get a really, really clear idea of what what people are experiencing and where the biggest need is. So we should have that information within the next 6 months.
That's wonderful. Mr. Foster.
Two things, one of which is North Grenville actually brought us in to actually run a survey for them to take a look at both the CIRA data and the supply side. So the CIRA data they used for demand, we added an extra couple of things for the Chamber of Commerce there as questionnaires. And so we actually have experience in doing, it was this summer, doing a survey for them so they would understand what the supply side was, what the demand side was, and so they could see where the gaps are. And actually, because of that, Chris Ranklers, who used to live in Kempville, is actually looking seriously at a couple of areas where we could upgrade some towers because of that, because we didn't realize the full demand. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that we actually set up for this project an area where people can register their interest. We actually look at where the demand is by what we call black stars. So anytime you actually say, hey, I'd like internet here, and you can't do it, we take the geographic location and stick it on our map. And then if we see enough black stars around an area, our team goes ahead and says, oh, let's go verify that demand to make sure it's current. And then let's go build, because we know with that many people, we can actually make the tower pay for itself. So that's part of what we do. So there is a landing page for this project. It's on the you can use a QR code to get to it. I'm sure Shauna will share that with you later today. And in addition, it's a website as well, so you can go storm.ca/ and I don't remember what we used. Maybe Chris or Michelle does, but we actually have a landing page for you, and we have 2 weeks ago we had 44 people already registered to be future clients. So we've got the first 72 radios in. And we're going to actually ask people if they're going to be one of our first 72.
That's wonderful news.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation. It's exciting times for our municipality, and we certainly look forward to a longevity of these towers servicing our community. So thank you again, and have yourselves a great evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate your, and Shauna, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you. Moving on to staff report 136-2021. I'll hand that over to Mr. CAO Tim Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you, good evening, council, administration, and members of the general public. Staff report tonight on the municipal modernization grant intake number 3. I don't think it's a coincidence that following up to internet access, we're talking about digitization of services and a transformation strategy in that area. As a township, we're committed to modernizing our service delivery and respecting costs for our ratepayers. The report relates to the 3rd intake under the program. You have all of the information in your council package, including the grant application process. Just as a reminder to council, most recently in 2019, and again this year, we have benefited greatly from modernization funding, which has been a real help to moving things forward with online payments, online permits, and other things. In the first round, we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2019, which we designated to a number of things, including recreation facility review, which is to come, the rec master plan, digital records policy, which I'll talk about, which was the 2nd round of funding we received, our VoIP phone system, a lot of technology with our renovations on our renovations to the office and online payments. In the 2nd round, the clerk is leading a digitization of records and records management, and that's in process. And then the 3rd rounds, our intentions are to apply for funds for a 3rd-party review to get a digitization of services and a digital transformation policy. Internally, we have a number of things we can still expand on and improve upon related to digitization of records and service and human resources. We've had, over the last 2 years since I came to the municipality, a number of retirements, turnover, where we've had to do a lot of hiring. We've had to do records management for health and safety, And I'm going to bring a report next where we're talking about records management as well. So we can certainly improve on that with digitization. Permits, licenses, payments, signatures. And from talking to Treasurer McDonald earlier, accounts receivable, accounts payable, access for our businesses where we could bill electronically and receive payment electronically. And it's even more prominent with COVID with having touchless service. An app, development of an app, for example, is another idea. So what you have before you is the information that we want to bring to you to apply for grant intake number 3. And it'll certainly meet a lot of our needs for improving things within the community, internal and external communications, and making things more efficient for staff. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for some questions.
Yep, thank you very much, Mr. Mills. This is wonderful. I'm hoping we are successful again. I think as a municipality, we have been very diligent with the funds that we have received and demonstrated to the province that we take these grants serious and definitely want to improve. One of the biggest items that I can think of is the permit, the online permit application. I know I spoke about it at an earlier meeting. It's very, very easy and it's all digital. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Any members, any questions of members of council? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Thank you, Mr. Mills, for your presentation. And I apologize if you answered my question. I had an audio issue there for a moment. With respect to this the specific application, I know you, back in August, Ms. Campo came, I believe it was, and described how we would be bringing in a third party to look at our records management system and provide us with recommendations. So I assume these things are linked, but I was wondering if you could speak to that, please.
They are, and I'll turn it to Clerk Campo in a minute, but one relates to digitization of records, and the other is furthering our digitization of services, and they work together. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Madam Clerk.
No, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think you put that quite well, Mr. Mills. So our intake 2 funds that we received for the current state assessment with our digital records is just that. It's a review of our records management. And we do have funds, I believe, that we've already earmarked for implementing the whatever suggestions might come out of that assessment. So what Mr. Mills is speaking to this evening and proposing for this 3rd round of the modernization funding is related to digitizing some of our services and corporate services. So within finance, human resources, and I think just generally the way we do business, and is not specific to the management of our current records.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Perfect. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Sam Macdonell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 136-2021 be received, and that council direct administration to submit an expression of interest and apply for the municipal modernization program intake 3 for a digital transformation strategy. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to staff report 137-2021, vaccination policy. CEO Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Tonight, through you, I'm going to bring a COVID-19 draft vaccination policy for the township. We, as a province, as a municipality, as an organization, have been dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic for almost 2 years. Most recently, in late August, the provincial government in stage 3 under the Reopening Ontario Act has been tightening public health measures. There's been a recent rise in COVID-19 caused by the Delta variant. The government has permitted the Chief Medical Officer of Health or local medical officer of health to require businesses and organizations to establish, implement, and ensure compliance with a COVID-19 vaccination policy. Our local health unit, the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, strongly recommends employers to consider implementing a policy. Within that, I want to remind council of some of the important things that we provide that are essential and crucial to our municipality. Fire services, our water and wastewater, our roads department, recreation and facilities. And while some may consider recreation and facilities as non-essential, I want to remind council that when our buildings were closed and we weren't able to offer clubs, programs, and sports, it had a real impact on our youth and the health and wellness of a lot of people, just not youth, everybody in the community when they couldn't access those buildings. At the same time, we also offer a number of things through our office in terms of building bylaw enforcement and corporate services that are extremely important. As the CAO and as administration staff, we are responsible under the Occupational Health and Safety Act to make put everything we can in place to make sure we protect the health and safety of workers, including from infectious disease. And it's important as managers and as leaders in the community that we put things in place. Vaccination policies have most recently been put in place in a number of, as you know, in a number of high-risk settings, post-secondary institutions, retirement homes, shelters, children's treatment centers, and indeed, many municipalities in the province have implemented a policy for staff, volunteers, suppliers, and contractors. So in drafting the policy that I'm going to talk about in the next few slides, we have administration and working with other municipalities in the lower tier and the upper tier in SDNG. We've sought out information and examples, looked at businesses and health organizations, and we have vetted everything that you have in your attachment tonight through our legal counsel as well. So just as a background, since I've mentioned this since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been committed to workplace safety and protecting our employees as much as possible. And in that, we want to include volunteers. When I say suppliers, it's also contractors. We have students that work for us, and we also have residents to consider. We are experiencing a fourth wave. It's driven by the variants, and as of concern really in our municipality is that the Eastern Ontario Health Unit most recently, depending on what data you look at, is either first or second in the province in terms of number of COVID positive cases per capita in terms of population. So when considering the policy, we are committed to protecting the health and safety of workers. So it will be a mandatory vaccination policy. It's an important measure that complements our workplace. The draft policy that you have in front of you may be amended. It's every 6 months, but certainly we can revisit it at any time, depending on it's hard to predict what's going to happen next week, next month, and a few months in terms of we definitely get information from our local medical officer of health and from the province. They make projections about how things are going to go, and they don't necessarily follow that course. So we always have to be mindful we may need to go back and review it. So the purpose is to mandate all workers, which includes full-time, part-time, casual, contract, seasonal, council, so yourselves, volunteer firefighters, volunteers, students, and all other persons deemed reasonable to be fully vaccinated, and includes suppliers and contractors, which you will see in the draft policy where we reach out to ensure that anybody coming inside our buildings that's providing any service will sign an attestation form. We can't collect information for other workplaces, but we certainly can get ask for an attestation from a contractor. The requirements defined by the Ministry of Health. So many of you will have gone online and downloaded your first and second vaccine so you can access certain places that are now legislated and mandated within the province right now. And the policy might include any subsequent recommended boosters as required, unless someone gets an exemption or an accommodation under the Human Rights Code. So it applies to all existing township workers. As a condition of employment or appointment for all future hires, which is important. So from this point forward, those that are hired, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And it requires all workers to be fully vaccinated and provide proof of vaccination or exemption. I've mentioned this already, and I'm not going to go through it, but we have a duty as an organization and as supervisors to ensure a safe workplace. We certainly take it seriously. And we have to remember in terms of the health and safety of our staff internally, but also the health and safety of our residents who are interacting with our staff and all of the services that we provide that I highlighted earlier. So I'd like to talk now about proof of vaccination dates for those that have been identified earlier, a requirement, including council. So I use the term workers. We're using the term workers in the presentation to encompass everybody. Must provide proof of vaccination by October 15th. Submit the documentation assigned form to Human Resources. And staff that are not fully vaccinated, there's a process that you see in your package for the first vaccine, the second vaccine by November 5th, and there's the dates there. So October 15th, November 5th, and November 19th are the key dates. So the township, and there's been some discussion, as you would have likely read in the press or seen online, about the Ontario Human Rights Commission. And we will certainly comply, and the workers who are looking for an exemption, as I mentioned, will apply by Friday, October 15th, which is the same date for staff to submit their first vaccination. We have identified disability and creed, and there has been a recent release by the Ontario Human Rights Commission about that. But the decision was that to allow staff to apply for an exemption. So we certainly can consider it. And that's all I'll say on that point right now. I'm sure you'll have questions after. So the non-compliance, so any worker does not have a legitimate exemption from vaccination. It's outlined there. So the dates are, if you're not fully vaccinated against COVID-19 by the applicable date, are in non-compliance with the policy. And just, if you're looking at a tiered approach to this, that staff who would not, or workers, workers, under the definition we've used earlier in the presentation, would have to request a vacation leave or other accrued entitlements or a leave of absence without pay. So if you don't have an exemption provided or proof of first dose by October 15th, that's when it would kick in. It's not going to be at the end of November. And then the other timelines go as such. I mentioned earlier about new hires. So we, as a township, we would not have to enact this with new hires going forward, that the requirement would be there for proof of full vaccination or an exemption prior to starting employment with the township as after October 15th. Our suppliers and contractors at times, for example, in this office, in the municipal office, we might have someone coming in to do renovate. We just renovated the office, for example. We may have someone come in to do a supplier to come in and provide service to a photocopier or to fix something, a plumber, an electrician, or otherwise, and that's where we're going to ask for the attestation form. So we have a lot of work ahead of us as a municipality to identify all of the suppliers who might come inside the building. It does not apply to those outside. So staff that are not fully vaccinated by the dates that have been identified would have to undergo rapid or antigen testing and continue as such twice a week until the full vaccination date, compliance date, and provide a negative result so that the supervisor is aware. Rapid testing or antigen testing at a minimum. So we're going to establish as a township twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. And arrangements have been made for testing to be done at the Cornwall SDNG. And I think it's important to highlight SDNG, that as a municipality, our taxpayers pay for access to paramedic services and emergency services. And the headquarters is located on Campbell Street, and staff would access between 6 and 9. Questions have come already about confidentiality and or safety. It's a drive-through. And this access is free of charge, no cost to the municipality, and would continue until such time as full vaccination. After that, it would be the responsibility of the employee. In consultation with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, we've been doing some research as well. Any unvaccinated workers must complete a mandatory COVID-19. Sorry, and there's a typo that I should say October 15th, I'm sorry. Must complete a mandatory COVID-19 vaccination program that has been approved by the township. And in consultation with Dr. Paul, that is coming, resources for employers or workplaces. That being said, there's certainly a lot of information available, and anybody can access, even through Google, what the pros are of being vaccinated in terms of protection from COVID-19. The evidence is there, scientific evidence. High vaccination rates are effective in reducing the spread of COVID-19. As a reminder to council, we support staff with paid sick leave. Where reasonable, we will give time, certainly going forward now with the requirements of vaccination during work time, that staff can go get vaccinated. The access to vaccinations now are broad and wide within our municipality, and there are also indications, recent discussions with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, that mass vaccination clinics will be returning soon. And then I've already mentioned the education sessions. All information pertaining to vaccination status will be treated as confidential by the employer, along with the collection and use and disclosure of information. That goes along with many other things we deal with in terms of human resources, just not COVID-19. And it will be kept in a secure location and destroyed when it's no longer needed. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Prior to opening it up for questions, I'd just like to say that that's certainly a management issue of COVID-19, but it's also a leadership issue in terms of ensuring the health and safety and well-being of our employees, and the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Mills. This is definitely a touchy subject, but I want to thank you for your leadership on this file. Council tasked you to come to the table with this to protect ourselves and our employees. And I certainly appreciate all the work that you and I'm sure you had help with it because it's so detailed. So thank you for that. And I'll open it up to Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. And thank you, Mr. Mills, for the presentation. As far as I'm concerned, you've presented us with exactly what we asked for. And went into a lot of detail on things that, needed to be covered and, crossed the T's and dotted the I's and the things that that council, doesn't have the time or the ability to get into a report like this. So thank you very much. I know it's going to be a hardship for a few of our staff and a few people in the community. And I appreciate that. And I want to make sure that they know that we understand that and we're listening to them. But I think this is necessary. I think it's going to be, it is very widespread. It's going to be more widespread as we go, but it is our job to protect and do what we can to protect the staff and the members of this community, So I think we wouldn't have served anybody's purpose to come in with something wishy-washy and not have any teeth to it. It just would have made a mess of it. So I think this, as far as I am concerned personally, this is the rule that we need. This is the right way to go. So I'm supporting it 100%. I understand that some people are going to be upset, but I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to be thankful to see this as well, that they've grown impatient of this pandemic, and we have the resources, we have the ability now to get ourselves out of it, and we need to do that final push to get to the end of it. So I think this is part of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Just wanted to probably say a few words in support of what Councillor Lang has already said. I agree wholeheartedly with what he said. I think when I first saw the policy, I had some concerns that the timelines were aggressive, but as we can see, like in Alberta, Saskatchewan, I mean, we're in a race against the Delta variant, and I think the timelines are appropriate. If we're moving forward with this, we need to do it now. We don't need, as we've seen reported by some other areas that are going to do it much later, probably later than they really should be considering it. So, I agree with the timelines. I want to echo. I want to repeat that. I do think it's our responsibility to ensure that we have policies that protect the staff and also our residents, many who use it are in vulnerable categories. Either age, pre-existing conditions, or they can't be vaccinated, like so many of the kids who use our facilities. So, I want to say that I accept the science of what you've presented about how vaccines can help us come out of out of the pandemic. I recognize that they are very effective in reducing the severity of illness, and that they help reduce the transmission of COVID, because folks who are vaccinated are less likely to infect others because they have less viral load, and that the vaccines are safe, that the risks of sickness and illness from COVID are much greater than the small risks that the vaccines pose, and that, having the high rates of vaccination helps protect those in our community who cannot be vaccinated, those with medical conditions or again, children. So I do think this is the right decision. This is what we need to do to keep our workplace safe, keep our residents safe. But like Councillor Lang said very eloquently, we do have there will be a minority that this will be difficult for, and we need to be conscious of that. But again, I think it's fair to say we're all trying to make the best decision we can here with the information that we know of at this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski. I'm going to go to CEO Mills, then to you, Councillor McDonnell. Tim, you had your hand up.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just considering timelines, administration staff certainly looked at timelines and how it is aggressive, and that there are certain individual situations that may require some conversation with human resources and or through the CAO's office. I can assure you that the door is open. And if a staff member needs to talk about some circumstances related to the timelines, for example, one of the vaccines maybe require 28 days instead of 21 and so on, then of course, let's have the conversation, but that doesn't take away the fact that there's the mandate that you have to be fully vaccinated. So.
Thank you very much. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I guess I'll just reiterate a bit of what my council colleagues have said. I guess, yes, we do have to be mindful of our minority of staff that maybe are either hesitant or aren't comfortable or do need to go and search out an exemption. But I think at the end of the day, the municipality has to hold themselves to a higher standard, maybe. And as an employer that employs essential staff like roads and winter maintenance staff, first responders, and then it's I personally feel it'd be pretty hypocritical of us to require a vaccination to enter one of our recreation facilities, yet our staff aren't required to have that vaccination. And I think it just puts our staff and our residents at ease that when they are dealing with a township employee, they know they aren't putting themselves in a vulnerable position. As Councillor Jaworski said, we do have a great population of maybe more elderly residents as well, that we want to be sure that they feel safe when they're using our facilities and dealing with our staff. So thank you for bringing this forward. I think you did exactly what council asked.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonnell. I just wanted to make one more point before I read the resolution. Tim, you had also shown a lot of leadership in dealing with your counterparts at the lower tier, so I want to thank you for that as well. I know the CAOs of ST&G have been back and forth on this file quite a bit in the last little while, so I wanted to thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the staff report 137-2021 be received, and that bylaw 84-2021 being a bylaw to adopt a COVID-19 vaccination policy, vaccination policy for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in Open Council this 4th day of October 2021. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you all very much. Moving on to staff report 138-2021. I got a few more pages here. My apologies. Ms. Campo or Ms. Brunet, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Yourself, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of council, tonight I'm here to discuss the request to increase kennel capacity. One of our residents who operates Carl's Place and your dog's home away from home is requesting to increase its kennel capacity for boarding from 15 dogs to 25. You might know this kennel. It used to be called the Holiday Inn under different owners. That kennel hadn't been operational for a minimum of a year. This new owner has been here for approximately 1 year. He has had phenomenal reviews. He added a letter here that you can see in your agenda, which speaks to his social media presence and all these other reviews that he has. And when he had his kennel inspection back at the beginning of the year, he passed with no concerns whatsoever. It's a beautiful kennel. It's already equipped to have more than 15 dogs, seeing as the Holiday Inn did have that permission at the time for having for an increase. The owner has requested to have more than 15 dogs, seeing as there's been occasions where he's already full, and then a family where he has one space left, a family with 3 dogs comes in and asks if they could board their dogs, and he unfortunately has to turn them down. We have to come to council with this presentation and request, because as our part 6 or section 6 of our animal control bylaw does require us to go to council to seek approval for this. Therefore, this evening, council has 2 options. A would be to pass a resolution granting the application and specifying the maximum number of dogs the applicant may keep at any one time in the kennel, or B, pass a resolution refusing the application. I'm happy to take any questions if any members of council have them.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Brunet. I certainly see this as an opportunity. I know that there are kennels out there that are sought after, and I know it's a service that our residents are looking forward to. I know we in the past have we turned down an application to increase, but I feel this is a different circumstance, and I am in favor. Are there any other questions of council? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden, and thank you, Ms. Brunet, for your presentation. And I'm going to ask you a question. I'm sorry that I didn't give you advance notice, but as Councillor Warden alluded to this, Deputy Mayor Warden, I'm sorry, alluded to that this is a different location than one we've considered in the past. And so it used to have 25. And so were there any concerns at that time from the public as when it was operating at 25?
So through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Jaworski, yes, unfortunately there was, but it wasn't due to the actual kennel. There was more disputes between the neighbors. So this being a new kennel owner, as well as a new operation, he did go, or the owners did go to their neighbors and speak to them and ask them if they had any concerns regarding this. This is hearsay. I have no proof of this. However, it seemed that there was no issues and he forewarned everyone. The purpose, he is going to be extending the runs towards the rear of the property, not bringing them any closer to the neighbors that initially had concerns in the past. Not with this kennel owner, however.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell, be it resolved that staff report 138-2021 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Mungary grants the application submitted by Mike Moore of Carl's Place Kennel to increase the number of dogs that may be kept at one time in the kennel to a maximum of 25 dogs. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Brunet.
Thank you, Council. Have a good night.
Yep. Moving on to staff report 139-2021, Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So the staff report that's before you this evening is caused from research that we've done recently to determine what parcels of property that we need to make some decisions on, that we might be disposing of or utilizing in a different way. And I've been recently tasked with the responsibility of township-owned lands as part of my portfolio now. And in reviewing different parcels of property that we don't have sufficient information on, that we will need to be able to move forward, we developed a list, worked with other managers to see what lands we should be looking into, and did work with a surveyor to receive quotes as to what the surveys would cost for these different surveys to be done in various locations. And given the pricing that has come back and following further discussions with our CAO, Mr. Mills, and our treasurer, Mr. McDonald, we realized that maybe the cost was a little higher than what we had anticipated, and felt it was best if we came back to council to do a formal request to reallocate up to $30,000 of 2021 budgeted dollars. Therefore, there'll be no increase to 2021. It just means that monies that we haven't spent to date and we don't anticipate to spend in 2021 can now be reallocated. And our treasurer, Mr. McDonald, could certainly provide you more information and exact examples of where he would take that money from. We feel this is necessary for us to be able to proceed with some surveys. I gave a couple examples of my staff report where we do need to respond to groups that have made inquiries. And sometimes we truly just don't know where the ownership of our land starts and stops, especially on the waterfront where there's crown land as well. And we have to be careful that we're not agreeing to do something on land that we don't own. And so I would appreciate it if council would consider approving this report, as it would allow us to move forward, make some informed decisions, provide you with some additional information, and have our township-owned lands a little bit more organized for future use and disposition. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I know Mr. McDonald is prepared to assist as well if you have budget questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the report, Ms. Haley. I think this is crucial. I think that you need to know what you own before you make any planning decisions. So I certainly am in favor of it. You cannot go wrong with this, with an accurate, up-to-date survey. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Haley, for the presentation. I'm in favor, but I wouldn't mind if Mr. McDonald would kind of tell me, generally speaking, where he's going to get the 30 grand.
All right, thank you. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We have multiple consultant budgets. So overall, we are under considerably. We won't be approaching it by the end of the year. We have also within that spent some money to the tune of 20 to 40,000 that will be coming out of modernization or COVID funding. So I imagine what is left for the end of the year would be about $70,000 to $80,000. That money would come from there. It could administration, a little bit from planning. There was a third that I identified to Mrs. Haley. I'm just forgetting off the top of my head, but within there was 70,000 to 60,000 within those three budgets. So it would just be reallocated administration. There's some in planning, and I forget the third, but it'd come from across the township. And at the end of the year, I'd anticipate our overall consultant budget, in particular when taking into account COVID monies and modernization monies that are offsetting some of that, will be under budget by at least 20,000, even in the event of doing this. And as you said, it's good to know which land we have, especially along the waters.
Thank you very much. Did you want to have a subsequent?
Yeah. So we're talking in the neighborhood of 30,000 that we expect this to cost. Is that what I get out of that?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I anticipate $30,000 to be what we need for 2021. I may be a little on the high side. We obviously have to follow our procurement policy as well. I would anticipate that we would be asking for council to budget dollars in 2022 and possibly every year, because we could have scenarios that could arise, whether it's road allowances or just road questions. Sometimes our roads department faces issues where they're not sure if a tree is on the township road allowance or if it's on private property, and that's just, you know, part of our maintenance of our properties as well. So I suspect that this might be an ongoing budgeted item subject to council's approval in the future. I just can't tell you what the cost would be on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. Thank you very much for bringing this forward. Ms. Haley and Mr. McDonald, I think this is really, I mean, it's been said, this is really crucial information to have about our files, and I look forward to us. I think it makes sense that going forward that this is something that we always have, a budget line that we have to support organizing our files. And I also hope that this ties into the digitization project so that the results of these surveys will be well categorized so that we'll have them going forward for the future. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Councillor McDonnell, did you have any questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 139-2021 be received, and that the council of the township of South Mungary approves to the reallocation of $30,000 in the 2021 budget to cover the costs of surveying applicable township owned properties. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to staff report 140-2021, road widening dedication as public highways. Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As you can see in my staff report, we have three severances that resulted in road widenings where land was required to be deeded to the township based on our policy. And these parcels of property would be located along Glenroy Road, Caber Road, and Glenbrook Road. Road widening is only requested and required to be deeded to the township if these road allowances are not 66 feet in width. And through the severance process, the surveyor would then review what the road width is and what our ownership is and make recommendations to the municipality as well as the lawyer to transfer the land. So the purpose of the staff report this evening is to ask council to approve the attached bylaw that would establish the road widenings as part of the public right of way. That would allow our roads department to be able to do any work and utilize that in the future, widen it accordingly because we now own that land and it's part of the public right of way. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for members of council? Seeing none, moved by. Did you?
Councillor Lang had his hand up, sorry.
My apologies. I just caught you at the corner of my eye. Go ahead,
I
Councillor.
was a little late. I was a little late. You were just about to read the resolution, and I'm not against this resolution, but I think we're going to be talking about something later on that's going to definitely deal with this. And but just to, you know, here's 3 times that the township is going to acquire some land forcibly from our residents without paying them, and actually not only without paying, charging them usually for the severance or for the surveys. It's this sort of thing. So I think, you know, we'll keep it in mind when we talk about the next the item later on in the evening, but I think this is something that does need to be addressed. Thank you.
Fair points. Any further comments? Seeing none, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 140-2021 be received, and that bylaw 85-2021 being a bylaw to accept certain lands as road allowance within the township and to dedicate same to the public use as public highway be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of October. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Just getting through here. Okay, so this is the staff report that I'm declaring carrying interest. I graciously hand the floor over to Councillor Jaworski, and just text me when it's over.
Thank you. All right, so now we're moving on to the staff report 7F, which is removing of holding symbol, zoning bylaw amendment. So I'll hand it over to you, Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Councillor. So this process is required where we have a parcel of property placed within a holding symbol. This property is located along Craft Road. It is a vacant parcel of property, and it is subject to future development. And in order to be able to entertain or accommodate the future development, we look at the surrounding land uses and look what's required, if any, processes to allow development to move forward. In this particular case, this parcel of property happens to be located in, I'm second guessing myself because I believe I just said the wrong name of the road. I apologize. So this property is located within a 500-meter holding setback. And the purpose of this 500-meter setback is, it's a requirement in the official plan and the zoning bylaw that anytime lands are located by an active septage site or within 500 meters of an active septage site, it could also be a municipal landfill, it could be a municipal lagoon. We want to make sure that the proposed development near or adjacent to these sites will not be negatively impacted because these sites came before the new development. In the zoning bylaw, there is a requirement that an assessment has to be completed to prove that the development will not be negatively impacted. And this includes the groundwater as well, knowing that this area is privately serviced. So in order to be able to move forward with looking at developing this site, the engineering firm WSP was retained by the property owner to do the necessary assessment to ensure that the proposed development will not be negatively impacted. The proposed development is approximately 400 meters away from the septage site and 200 meters away from the septage property boundary. And after receiving the engineer's report and reviewing it, there was no concerns, in my opinion, to be able to move forward with removing the holding symbol. And then, of course, we followed the necessary process under the Ontario Planning Act to do so. We have notified the public, the abutting property owners. A notice was placed in the Glengarry News as well as on our website, and we have received no comments to date. This process is a little different than a typical zoning amendment process where there's not as much consultation as well. The only person who can appeal the decision of council is the applicant. So of course, staff is recommending that the bylaw be approved to remove the holding symbol, which would allow for single family detached development to occur on this property, subject to a building permit, of course, also subject to a septic system. And if the holding symbol is removed, it will also allow for any accessory use or any other zoning permitted uses within the zoning standards. And that's basically all I have to explain. I know this is something that we don't provide counsel on a regular basis. So I feel like I needed to add a little bit more information, but if you have any questions, let me know. And I just want to clarify, in the beginning of the presentation, I said it was on Craft Road, and it's not on Craft Road, it's on Fraser Road. So I do apologize for that misinformation. So thank you, and please let me know if you do have questions.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Haley. Yes, this is an unusual one. I had to go and look up what septage meant. Quick question, if I can start off. You mentioned that other applicable agencies, this was also circulated to. Which agencies would that have been?
So this would have been circulated to the abutting property owners, as well as just placed in the newspaper. I didn't actually have to do any agencies outside of our municipal office in this particular case, because the Conservation Authority was not applicable. It wasn't on a county road. We didn't need to involve MTO in this exact location for this process. So it was more of a smaller circulation.
Okay, all right. So there were no applicable agencies in this specific case. All right, great,
yes,
thank
and
you.
I apologize. Sometimes I refer to agencies as just people I circulate. So I should improve that language, sorry.
Oh, that's fine, thank you. Do other members of council have any questions on this one? No, okay. So then I think I can go ahead and read the motion. So it's moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 141/2021 be received, and that the bylaw 86/2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3809, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the township of South Glengarry, for the property legally described as part of Lot 2, Concession 1 Front, Part 5 on Reference Plan 14R 1471, in the former township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry, to remove the holding symbol to permit the development of a single detached dwelling, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of October 2021. All in favor? All right, carried. Thank you very much. And now I think we can let Deputy Mayor Warden know that he can return. All right, and now I hand the reins back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jaworski. Moving on to staff report 142/2021, Chief Robertson.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm going to speak about our fire dispatch agreement. The Township of South Glengarry has received fire dispatch services from the City of Cornwall through the Cornwall Police Service for the past 5 years. We are in the 5th year of that agreement, and it expires on the December 31st of this year. Cornwall Police Service, they provide fire dispatch services for the Cornwall Fire Department, the townships of North and South Glengarry, and North and South Stormont. We've received excellent service from the Cornwall Police Service in our 5-year agreement with them. Our agreement, the value of our agreement ending this year was for the value of $38,000 per annum. That number, through some reevaluation from Cornwall, they're proposing that fee raises in 2022 to the value of $51,000, $51,450 in the first year. That fee, as it has in the past 5 years, will continue to increase by 2% each year. The rate increase suggested by Cornwall is for a number of reasons. This previous 5-year agreement, that was the first time that the Cornwall Police had provided services to outside agencies, adding on the most recent 4 services that I mentioned with the 4 townships. After this 5-year agreement, they've evaluated their needs and their requirements to provide that service. They have priced to have a dedicated, which is a service that we actually require of them in the agreement we negotiated for. We have a dedicated fire dispatch seat. So in essence, one dispatcher is always dedicated to fire when a fire 911 call comes in. They will assist with additional police service requests if the fire volume is low. But on the flip side, if there is a major storm or a major event or numerous events across their service region, we actually will get police dispatchers assisting fire response. So we have excellent service in that manner. So the other item, and the predominant item for the price increase, is the federal government has required next generation 911 come into service. So our historical or our legacy 911 service was basically limited to phone calls and had very little accessibility needs, or met very few accessibility needs, I should say. Next generation 911 will allow text to voice. It will allow various data requirements for certain members of the public that are limited by voice telephone calls when they require a 911 service. These technical and operational upgrades come with a significant cost to dispatch centers, and that's the predominant reason for an increased cost in the proposed 2022 through 2026 agreement. So we have reached out to and had significant discussions over the last number of years, and predominantly this year, with both our partners with Cornwall Police Service, our fire partners, but also a number of other municipalities in the area who are serviced by other dispatch centers. Most of the other dispatch centers are smaller, and we are very confident in the service and the relationship that we have with Cornwall Police. If we were to move to another dispatch center, there would be significant costs for connection, for resetting up our mapping and our operations policies. Those items come with a significant cost. So we are suggesting a continued partnership with the Cornwall Police Service through the City of Cornwall, and we're in favor, administration is in favor of continuing on and signing a further 5-year agreement with Cornwall Police. As far as the 2021 budget, there will be no increase in the 2021 budget. This would be an agreement that would take hold in 2022, and the increased cost would be allocated to the 22 budget and be discussed in those budget deliberations. So if there's any questions, I'd be very open to answering, sir.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Chief. I mean, the cost of everything has gone up significantly in the last couple of years. And to me, the added benefit of having the next generation 911 is going to be a huge benefit. And I know in the past, I remember when we signed on with Cornwall the last term, and we haven't had any issues since. So it's a necessary tool in our chest. Are there any other questions or comments of members of council? Was that your hand up, Councillor Jaworski? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry. I thought maybe there'd be other comments, but I guess I just wanted to speak to, although clearly other members of council are much more knowledgeable on this, and Chief Robertson, of course, but I guess I just wanted to lend a few words to say that I think it makes a lot of sense to also say with one that we already have experience with, but also one that is local, because I do think there is value in having folks who are aware, not just of what we look like on a map, but also aware of, you know, us in more like in real life, so to speak. So although it is unfortunate that the cost is going up, it seems that that is the trend that these things are going, and with the additional services that will be provided, I assume that's large in part to that. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Sam McTennell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 142-2021 be received, and that bylaw 87-2021 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Cornwall Police Service for fire dispatch services be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of October 2021. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to staff report 143-2021. Ms. Servidge.
Thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor. So the existing ice surface at the Charland Recreation Center is original to the building and is well beyond the expected life of the refrigeration piping. Actually, this year, Simcoe, our refrigeration plant contractor, turned off one of the refrigerant pipes due to a leak. So it is critical that we move forward with the replacement of the equipment in order to operate next season. So the RFP for the engineer work was issued on September 2nd and closed on September 23rd. Based on the evaluation criteria, staff is recommending that council awards the project to EVB Engineering with a cost of $85,415, not including HST. And as mentioned in the report, the township did receive $1.4 million from the ICIP grant for this project. I'm just going to go into a few more details as I know council had some questions. So EVB Engineering will have Good Key, Weedmark and Associates, GWA, as their sub-consultant. So EVB and GWA has experience doing these types of projects together. Right now, they're working on the town of Prescott Arena, which I had followed up with them, and they had a positive working experience with EVB so far on that project. In the past, they worked on an arena for the city of Ottawa, which included the replacement of the arena slab. EVB also did work at the Sensplex, which included designing 3 new NHL size ice pads. Now, with respect to the timeline, so EVB did put in their proposal that they will finish their 99% design submission by January 12th. Issue the construction tender and review in January, February, and then deal with the construction in April to July 30th. So a few comments that I want to make with regards to the timeline. There is a long lead time on rink pipe right now, but the sooner we can award the construction tender, the sooner we can order the product. The one portion of the timeline that will really affect when we can reopen is when the slab gets poured. So once it is poured, you can turn the refrigeration plant on not until 28 days later. So obviously we're planning to be completed by July 30th. This will allow for a few additional weeks of construction into August if needed before the plant is turned on. I've been made aware that during past discussions for this project, it was discussed that we shouldn't be closed at the same time as North Glengarry, as they're also working on a renovation project at their arena as well. The project at Charland will not start until the ice season is done at the end of March of 2022, and with hopes of being completed before we open in September 2022. And I will mention that North Glengarry does plan on having their project to be completed in August 2022 at their Sports Palace. So although I am mentioning a completion date of July 30th, 2022, with some overlap in August if needed, I have been told by our refrigeration contractor and some other sources that the 4-month timeline will work for this project. So March to or April to July. We will do our best to stick to this timeline. But as I mentioned earlier, there are products that are hard to get right now. So we will continue to do our best to be open for that 2022 ice season in September. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Servage. I have a couple questions. The first being, do we know what the, could you provide council with the bid quote from the other Barry Bryan Associates? What their bid was?
Yes, that is what I had sent. I had sent that through earlier today if you wanted me to bring that up right now.
Yeah, just publicly give the amount that the other quote was, if you don't mind.
Yep. So Barry Bryan Associates supplied a quote of 126,000.
Okay, substantially higher. Thank you very much. The second question that I have is there any in the contract before, I guess it's awarded, and we all know the climate we're living in, is there any way that we can have a provision that the project can't start till they have all the supplies needed? Because currently in North Glengarry, County Council awarded a contract for a bridge. Now it's not the same thing, but they basically shut down the road, and the project's been delayed almost 6 weeks because there's products that have not arrived in order to complete the job. So we all know how much our rink is loved by the community and how much Councillor Jaworski and her family use it. Is there any way that we could say, okay, we want you to have everything in before you start?
Yeah, I think that's something that we can definitely look at. And with that being said, we won't be starting to take out our what we have right now until the ice is out. And by that time, we will have already ordered the piping that I was mentioning as well. Like that will be ordered as soon as the contractor is awarded. So yeah, that's definitely something we can look into for sure, especially with a lot of products being on back order, and maybe they'll say, it's a 6-week lead time right now, but that could be extended. So that's a good point.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Ms. Servage, for your presentation. I like where you're going with this, Lyle. I'm wondering, I don't have a problem with them starting the thing because the ice is going to be out already. I like the idea of having a little bit of a consequence if it's not done on time. Like a penalty or a fee or something, or certain amount comes off the contracted price, for every week that they're late, because it's such a time sensitive thing. So if we have a completion date of July 31st and they tell us that it's going to be the end of September, then maybe there's I don't we throw a number out there, but certain number of $1,000 comes off every week, or penalty every week that it's not done on time. Unless the holdup is us. If the holdup is us because we didn't get the supplies, then it's a little different. But if it's just that they had 10 jobs on the go and they didn't get a chance to do them all, and I don't know if that's doable to put in the thing. Maybe the contractors won't accept, and if they don't, well, then it gives you a little hint of where they're thinking things are going to be.
Yeah, that I think what you're bringing up, Councillor Lang, would be more towards the construction tender. Like this is for the engineering only. So I think that's something that we could discuss with the engineer whenever we put out the RFP for the construction portion of the project, and see if that's something that's typically put in these RFPs.
Yes, exactly. I'm not speaking at all towards the tender we're talking about tonight. I'm just thinking in the future that when this goes, and if you want to speak towards what the motion that's on the floor is, that I'm in favor of this. I think they've given us a good price. I know we do a lot of work with EVB, but they tend to give us a good price and good service. So
thank you, Councillor McDonnell, then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'll just speak to the as well to the, I guess, when it comes to the contract or to the tender for the construction contractor. Yeah, I'd agree with Councillor Lang. I know we've it's been done through my company when we build the fertilizer plant and we set a deadline. It's got to be on time, otherwise we'll have quite a few unhappy customers like Councillor Lang calling us wondering why they can't get their product. So I know it's definitely doable in those. You might pay a little bit more for a contractor that's going to abide by that, but it's definitely the penalty, I think, is is proven to work well. I know we've seen it work well, and I agree with Councillor Lang that with tonight's motion, I have no issue issuing it to EVB. As you said, they've been very good to work with through my term here, and the price was obviously very fair in comparison to the other bid. Thank you for your presentation.
Go ahead, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through Deputy Mayor Warden. Ms. Servige, first, I just wanted to thank you. I sent you several questions with regards to the staff report about timeline, and I really appreciate the thoroughness with which you answered that, and also the fact that you shared a lot of that information again in your presentation this evening. Because yes, as Deputy Mayor Warden has said, the rink is near and dear to my heart, but I also know how many other people it's near and dear to. So minimizing disruption and maximizing it being used is definitely important to me. And I also want to thank you and everyone who's supporting you and working with you on this, about how it seems to me how proactive everything is being, how things, the RFPs are coming out well in advance, so that we will be in the best situation to be able to get it done in that tight timeline. So I appreciate that, and I encourage you to continue it as we move forward on the project. So thank you.
Perfect. Seeing no other comments, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 143-2021 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry award RFP 22-2021 EVB Engineering as per their submission of $85,415 plus HST, and furthermore, that the Deputy Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay. So I believe this is where Councillor Jaworski would speak to the item she asked to have pulled, correct?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, we do have one item before that, which is the information report regarding the payment for road widenings.
Yeah, my apologies, it just came up. I believe Councillor Lang, that was something you requested?
I think it's just a report that we had council asked for a while ago, but I'd be happy to speak to it. I don't know if Lachlan wants to do a presentation first, or if you would like me to just make my comments.
I'd be glad to receive your comments, Councillor Lang. I suppose everybody read it. We went out, we did a little bit of light research to give you a little perspective, but you wanted to speak to it again, so please go ahead.
Well, thank you, and thank you for doing the research. I think it is something that has been on my mind since I was first elected, and I started working on it a little bit, and did a little bit of chatting with staff, and then got busy, and it had dropped, and now it's coming back again, and I'm eager to see this continue on its way. The process, I think, of us, whenever anybody wants a severance, and they are perfectly within their rights to ask for severance, and they meet all the qualifications, and then as a township, we come along and we say, yes, your application for severance and everything is all in order, but we will not grant it unless you give us a certain amount of land for a road widening for free. And that insult to injury, we then ask them to pay for the survey. So I want to continue asking for that land for the road widenings. That's something that the municipality needs. We need to get our roads widened out. We've talked about this in the past. We've got certain roads that need drainage done, and we just don't have the width on them. So this is something that needs to continue. My only issue is, I think we need to pay the person, and my suggestion, well, this is something that will need to be discussed in the future, because it's not it doesn't need to all be decided tonight. My suggestion is that we pay them according to the impact assessment. It's something that would be across the board, reasonably fair. I know some people may say it'd be a little too low for whatever their situation is, but it's something. Right now they're getting nothing, and I just don't think it's right. If we were to go out and on our own start the process, we would go up and down the road, we would negotiate with each landowner, we would pay them a fair price for their land. This way, we're just basically blackmailing them for their land. If you want the severance, you give it to us for free. Otherwise, you don't get your severance. And I know a lot of municipalities are doing it, maybe almost all of them in the province, but it's still not right. And I'd like to see us be a leader in this issue and start this process. I'm hoping County Council will follow. I'm hoping the lower tier of an SDNG will follow along. It's not, according to your report, which that's the main thing I appreciate in your report. It looks like it's possible to cost us maybe $50,000 a year. And I say cost us, it really isn't costing us. It's going to save those 10 or 15 landowners paying that all on top of them. Because it's not right for one landowner to give up property to benefit the whole township and he covers the whole cost. So anyway, maybe I'm rambling on here a little bit. As you can tell, I'm fairly passionate about it. I'd like to see us move forward. So my vote here is to see staff come back with a updated bylaw. It's been a long time since it's updated to reflect that we're going to now cover the cost for those pieces of property that we decide we need to take for the betterment of the whole township.
Thank you very much for those comments, Councillor Lang. Mr. McDonald, did you want to say anything at this point, or just Councillor McDonnell has his hand up?
No, I'm just looking for guidance. I suppose the one thing would be 48,000 would be a 0.5% increase in taxation. So as much as, and that's on the higher end, to be fair to that point, we do have a lot of ambitious infrastructure plans, and I don't know if this has to be done separate from them or together, but as we combine trying to do a little bit more on roads, a little bit more through the next budget, that will put some budgetary pressure. So that's very much council's purview. I'm glad to follow whatever direction I'm given. Just to note that as we want to do more, it does cost a little bit more too.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd like to reiterate a lot of what Councillor Lang just said tonight. I'm in complete support of moving forward and going this route. It was kind of funny. I had a resident call me today to express their frustration with this system we run when it comes to severances. He described it as, stabbing me with a double-edged sword, because first of all, I'm giving it to you, which I have no problem doing. I don't mind giving the land because the township's going to benefit. I'll probably benefit one day when the road's not flooded. But my biggest issue is you're making me pay to give it to you. It's like asking for a donation and then telling them we're going to charge them for the credit card fee. So it's a bit of a kick whenever you're doing something like that. And there's also situations, I know one's been brought to my attention as well, where a landowner maybe buys a property and then tries to sever off, say on a farm property, sever off the house. They're now giving the severance on the entire farm property that they just paid for the land, and now there's no compensation for them, which in situations, if you're on a side road, say, or on a corner, could cost you, essentially could be like giving the municipality $20,000 worth of land. So I know it's definitely something I agree with Councillor Lang. We're asking people to pay to give us land. And I think for what the land is worth nowadays, whether it's a residential lot like Deputy Mayor Warden knows, or a commercial lot, or just a farm field, it's very expensive. And I think people deserve to be paid for it and not have to pay for everybody's benefit. That's why we use tax dollars to fix the roads. So I think we should be using them to widen them as well.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden, through you. So I'll recognize the work of Councillor Lang in being a champion on this topic. And it was not something. It's not something that I was aware of. Certainly wasn't, anywhere on my list of things that are on high priority. So I give Councillor Lang credit for putting energy behind this, and because I do understand the principle of the matter that you're explaining here. And that if we are taking land for the benefit of the municipality, that folks should be compensated for that. And I do think that that's also a principle that our residents would agree with as well as a whole. And I expect that, this has been an issue going on for quite some time, but when land values were quite a bit lower than they are today, probably the few $100s or whatever it was, that's not the same as when we have the very large land values that we're seeing today. And, I've had some time to think about this. And one thing, too, that I think is good about this is that it also and when it comes to now maintaining that right of way, the roadside, maintaining the ditch, ensuring that folks are not encroaching into the ditch, for lack of a better word, gives us a bit more moral authority in assuring that, that people are not, doing anything that they shouldn't be doing that could perhaps negatively impact that ditch. So I think the reasoning here is fine. And it is something that also I would support staff working on. And I think in some of the comments that Mr. McDonald had in his report with respect to, with respect to who it should apply to, I think it should apply broadly. I don't think it should be only for one class of properties. I think it should apply for, residential, agricultural, rural. Because again, if it's based on the principle applies to all. But I think that was the main question I think you were asking for, McDonald. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those comments. I agree with everyone, and the point that I wanted to bring was that I feel it should be applied equally across the board. I mean, it is an asset. The land becomes an asset of the municipality, so and it will be there for everyone's benefit. So thank you for that discussion, and look forward to Ms. Haley. Did you have anything that you maybe wanted to add from a planning perspective on this this report?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I don't have anything to add at this time. I'll certainly assist Mr. McDonald when he's developing the policy to provide the applicable language, if you will. I really feel this is more of a financial policy, given the approval of council required if they choose to purchase the land. And based on the approved policy, then we will continue doing severances probably as usual, with the condition of requiring the widening after listening to council, but coming up with a formula that allows for compensation for the value of the land. And no, I think this is something that is entirely within the right to council to do, and administration simply receives your direction.
Thank you very much for those comments. Councillor McDonnell for the final comment.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I guess this is a question maybe directed to both Ms. Haley and yourself. I guess for myself and Councillor Lang, it's very easy to put an idea together. Most of our calls have been on on farm properties. It's MPAC assessed cost per acre or price per acre that they're assessed at. You would use that and maybe move forward, be my suggestion. I think that was Councillor Lang's suggestion. On a residential side, would you set a price value for the standard lot divided by, say, if it's I don't know, 3/4 of an acre is $100,000 for a residential lot, and break it down per square foot? Is that how you would do it? I'm just trying to get an idea of how we would determine on the residential side, because I know the ag and maybe barren or bare rural ground is one thing, but as far as say if you were to sever a farmhouse off of a farm, how would you do that frontage? Would it be in that, or is that just for administration to, I guess, come up with?
Well, I mean, I think there's any mathematical equation, no matter what you sever. A residential lot has a value assigned to it. It's certainly in some cases it's more than agricultural land, depending on the type of property. If potentially more than agricultural land, because it has climbed quite a bit high in the last number of years. But a small 5-acre lot that you could develop a hobby farm on, people could pay up to 150, 1,000, 120, 150,000. So I think it's the same. The equation applies no matter the classification, and there will be an assessed value. And I don't think it's, personally speaking, I don't think will be hard to come to a reasonable conclusion on any type of land.
Okay, no, I was just kind of, I didn't know, because I would assume those, say a farmhouse, say, or a single family dwelling, you'd be talking probably more in square feet or square meters than you would be in acres. So just that percentage, I figured, you'd have to put a cost to that. I didn't know if there was kind of a standard in your industry as far as your rule of thumb for the average rural lot, or as a cost per square foot. So I guess we can leave that to administration based on the impact.
Yep, I agree. Thank you very much. Moving on to my apologies. it will be 7DF. Councillor Jaworski, the resolution, OHIP, eye care, and the Township of North Glengarry.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Warden. So, when we have our neighbors bring forward a resolution, I always try to make sure I take a good look at it, because I like to support our neighbors as best we can. And so, and I actually have a personal connection and specific to this, to the resolution. So currently in Ontario, optometrists are paid by OHIP, so by the province, to do eye exams on children 19 years and younger, and seniors 65 years and older. They get an eye exam paid by the province annually. And the fee that the province pays the optometrists has essentially not changed in the last 30 years. So in protest of that, and it's around $30. They're paid around $30 by the province for that service. And because it hasn't been raised, essentially it's a job action by optometrists currently. So currently, if you have a child or if you're a senior in Ontario, you cannot get an eye exam. So in my case, my 3 kids needed to have eye exams for new glasses for school. And so we had to go to Quebec to get them done. And they were there, the optometrist charged $100. So to just give you a sense of how they value that service versus what the provincial government is paying optometrists currently. So I know they have an optometrist in North Glengarry, and so I know they were specifically supporting that optometrist, but I would like to, if council is in agreement, I would like to support North Glengarry's resolution as well, in support of what the optometrists are asking the province.
Okay, so are you okay if staff brings that back at the next meeting for approval, or Ms. Campo, are you ready to roll with
I do have a resolution prepared, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So if there is what I can do is I can read the draft resolution that I've prepared, and if there's a seconder, we can approve that this evening.
Okay, if you don't mind.
So I'll go ahead and read the draft resolution. So be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby supports the resolution passed by the Township of North Glengarry and requests that the provincial government address OHIP insured eye care immediately and enter into legally binding negotiations with Ontario optometrists to fund eye care services by providing cost recovery prior to any job action taking place. And furthermore, that the clerk forward this resolution to Premier Doug Ford, the Honorable Christine Elliott, Minister of Health, MPP Jim McDonnell, MP Eric Duncan, the Ontario Association of Optometrists, and all SDG municipalities.
I'm okay with that. Are we able to circulate to all municipalities in Ontario?
Sure, and all Ontario municipalities.
Councillor McDonnell, you had your hand up?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd be happy to second Councillor Jaworski's motion.
Okay, so moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell, and I will leave it to you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to call the vote.
All right, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. No one should have to wait 30 years to get a raise. So that concludes this portion of our meeting. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports and for information only. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to the next item, closed session. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that council convene to close session at 9:09 p.m. to discuss the following items under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, SO 2001. 2, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter discussed is C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, specifically proposed disposition, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations, specifically staffing matter. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. I'd like to thank all members of the public for attending this evening's meeting, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.